Hello and welcome to episode 226 of Retro Encounter, RPG fans' weekly podcast of many topics. I'm Mike Sollosi, and we're bringing to this week more NieR Automata, continuing our discussion from last week. All four of us have beaten the game, me by the skin of my teeth. About 2 hours ago, I rolled credits, and were they ever credits? I think we might dedicate the last 40 minutes of this podcast to the end credits of Route E. But
I'm down with that.
Yeah, but before we exactly divide up that pie, let's introduce the rest of the podcast. Joining me today is Zach Wilkerson.
There.
Caitlin Argyros.
Hello.
And Joe Padilla.
Hi.
So, we only talked about the A route of NieR Automata in part one of our podcast. That's just the first time you're playing the game. 2B is your main... The android 2B is your main character, but now I have to put an asterisk on her name for something we'll get into later. And you roll credits once. But part of this game is playing it multiple times and learning more about the lore and world of NieR Automata in subsequent playthroughs. You use a character named 9S in Route B, and then Route C you use 9S again plus another android named A2, and 2B, 9S, and A2 each bring something different to the table. Going right into the B route playthrough, it roughly covers the same events of the A route playthrough. In fact, the exact same events, but from the perspective of 9S instead of 2B. So a lot of it is just straight up exactly the same as Route A, but a lot of it is when 9S is doing something differently than 2B, and also reflects just 9S's different skill set. And different actions that he takes versus what 2B takes. So, starting with you, Caitlin, whether it's B or C or another weird ending, what is something that we learned about in the later playthroughs that really surprised you or put the first playthrough in a bigger context? And it's okay if you jump to the end or jump around a little bit. We are spoiling everything about this game in this new episode.
Oh, well, I mean, I think that all of Route C is kind of like the head turn for the game. Like, it's just the way that route starts, it almost feels like you're in a double feature and you're like, you see the credits in Route B and then it's like, well, here's the sequel immediately after the credits. Here's what happened. And then everything goes to shit and everything is different after that. Like, it feels weird playing A2 after 2B is basically, mercy killed by her.
Yeah, and you're talking about the change in the world state. It's like a post-apocalyptic world had a second apocalypse.
Right? Like the tower popping up out of nowhere and then figuring out how to get into it and then exploring, and it was really weird. It was like it could almost have been like a second game, but they just threw it in there as another route. And then talking about like revelations that really shocked me. I think learning the truth about Project Yorha, like not even the truth that 9S learns at the end of Route B about humanity already being long dead and Yorha being basically just a ploy to increase morale, but the truth about the end date of Project Yorha and how they were going to end the project was a shocker. And then that asterisk that you talked about with 2B's name, I was not prepared for that, and I loved how the game gave you hints earlier from like little snippets in hacking sequences where A2 was experiencing some of 2B's memories, 2B's reaction to 9S after the prologue, and then at the end of Route A and B when she has to kill him made so much more sense. And
her words exactly at the end of A and B are, "Why does it always have to end like this?"
Yeah.
And which made it seem like she had done this before. Which I contextualized at first, saying, "Oh, okay, Route A, Route B. Maybe this is like a zero escape thing where people remember previous playthroughs as sort of like a background memory." But it's not. It's a little bit more literal than that. She has executed 9S in that way or in a similar way many times before because she's an execution unit. Mm-hmm. Who's part of the Yorha cover-up.
Did you ever really expect that a side quest that you did that introduced the concept of execution units was going to come back and actually be a thing for the main story.
I mean, that makes the Wandering Couple and Amnesia side quests both even more powerful on a second playthrough. I mean, it's amazing.
And it made the side quests like your assignments to take out rogue Yorha units a little bit more on the nose. Like she's not doing this because she's an all-purpose unit. She's doing this because she's an execution unit that's really designed for it.
Yeah.
And one other thing that surprised me a little bit, basically, listeners, Yorha is the special android organization that 2B and 9S and A2 come from, which is, not all androids. Like all androids have existed for hundreds of years before Yorha. Yorha is the special android, our special android operatives that are involved in the cover-up of the extinction of humanity. And I think a timeline they give us was that humanity was wiped out in the 3800s or so, and then I think at one point they mentioned that the robot war has been going on since the 500s or 5100s AD. But then when at the end of D Route, you learn a little bit of extra context for 9S's creation. And it mentioned that it was the year 11,300.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
So either the android machine war has been going on for that long, or possibly maybe I'm a big dummy about this. Like, has Yorha founded and then refounded itself, and the bunker exploded and been rebuilt several times? Or
That's a really dark way to think about it, because if you think about the ending, then that would actually. I mean, it's still possible. You still got 2 androids left, so yeah.
Yeah,
or 3. Don't you see A2 as well?
Yes, A2 is there as well. You're right. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if just the rough events of what takes place in the game, just like the machines and androids on Earth being wiped out and rebuilt. I don't know if that has just happened several times, and the 2B gets assigned multiple 9S units, or if it's larger scale than that, and all of Yorha has been built and rebuilt multiple times over the millennia. But the context here is these aren't just like alternate realities, these different playthroughs. These might be on a single timeline, which just puts everything that happens in the game in a larger, bleaker context. Joe, what was something that we learned in playthroughs beyond A that surprised you, or if you found the most intriguing?
One word: Pascal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my!
Let's get into this.
Yes,
for Pascal.
It's Pascal. I think is such a wonderful, heartbreaking centerpiece of this game, and I think it kind of ties into the this, like, how many times has Yorha and the Yorha project been dismantled and rebuilt and sold this lie and continue and until time ends, essentially. And you kind of see this in Pascal, and you see it in this idea that he could potentially be making the same mistakes over and over again. Because of when you're in the factory, and this is jumping ahead a little bit.
No, we're going to jump all over the place. You're talking about a scene during one of the A2 sequences in the C route, where A2 and Pascal flee the robot village, which has been attacked by berserk machines, and Pascal is trying to safeguard a group of machine children from the village.
Mm-hmm. And he is unable to do that. He first breaks his pacifism, and he fights an Engels robot.
He takes over his own Engels robot, and then you have a straight up kaiju battle between two giant Engels, which I think I mentioned in the first episode. I thought that Engels robots resemble offshore oil platforms, just to give you an idea of the feeling of scale in this fight.
and it's supposed to be this like very blown out version of Engel's critiques on Pascal, which is just ridiculous. But I love that it's two giant, essentially mechanical kaiju instead of words on a paper. Fabulous, brilliant. So he breaks his pacifism. He returns to where he thinks he's keeping the children, as he calls them, safe. And they have all killed themselves. Because he basically
fear. Yeah.
He taught them fear to keep them safe or to give them a sense of humanity, but that fear was too great for them, and they just killed themselves because they were so terrified.
I think Pascal's reasoning was that humans have fear as a means of self-preservation, and robots should have fear for the same reason. But they were missing some ingredient in the human psyche, or the machines were that that didn't allow fear to completely, snowball into despair and suicide, which is just completely heartbreaking because Pascal is the machine that I think maybe the only one that really demonstrates empathy.
Yeah.
Pascal's characterized by wanting peace above all others and believing that androids and machines can live and work together, and is always reaching out to the main character androids for assistance, and has a relationship with an enemy at the resistance camp. But for Pascal to take the things that he wants to protect the most, the children of the village he founded, and to walk in on them all having committed suicide because of a miscalculation, basically, is just the most heartbreaking thing in the world. And at the end of that scene, Pascal gives you the option: please either kill me or completely reset me.
Well,
and also actually just walk away from him too.
Or you can do that too. Oh, shit.
Yeah,
I did.
I've always reset him.
I reset him, and I am not cold-blooded enough to walk away. Holy smoke! No,
Why?
that
was
would
a possibility.
Again, I was up late last night, getting through Route C, but I would not have been able to sleep easily if I had done that.
No.
Well, a couple of thoughts as to the fear. I think, and
it's about Pascal's wager, right?
Yeah, and I think also just within the context of the game, I think it's that there wasn't like a maturation process for the children, and I mean this is just very like kind of spitballing, but as an adult, I think, and as adults, I think we know so much more about the world, and we are kind of infinitely more terrified of it than we were as children because we understand so much more about it. But with that comes like maturation and the ability to be able to find some way to sleep at night, at least most nights, some nights on occasion.
Usually I'm just so tired I don't have a choice.
Yeah. You just, and then you wake up screaming, and then eventually, it goes to a dull roar, and you rinse, repeat. But I think that's kind of what happened. Is they probably have the same sense of fear that Pascal does, but they don't have the experience or maturation to be able to cope with that, leading to their own suicide. And when Pascal gives you that choice, I also reset him. I did not know you could walk away, but when I replay this game, I'm going to walk away because I don't feel right that even though he's handing me this choice, I don't feel it's my choice to make. I don't feel like it's my judgment, even though it is a choice to leave him. He has to decide for himself whether to die. And what really sealed that for me, I was agonizing over this decision in this game. I walked around my apartment for 15 minutes thinking about the ethical implications of it. I felt like Chidi from The Good Place or something.
Chidi. Okay, if Chidi had played NieR Automata, I think
he wouldn't have gotten past.
He
the
would
first
be
No,
10
stuck,
minutes.
absolutely
like,
not. Oh, no.
okay.
Okay, listeners for the uninitiated, The Good Place is a sitcom that is about moralism and and ethics, in addition to being a meditation on the nature of heaven and hell,
and really funny.
and extremely funny. It's by Mike Schur, who worked on The Office and Parks and Recreation and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which are 3 other excellent sitcoms. But there's a character named Chidi who has absolutely crippling inability to make choices, even simple ones. And the nature of choice in NieR Automata and the way NieR Automata comments on moral relativism and philosophy would make it also the perfect game for Chidi and a literal hellscape for Chidi.
They should have just had him play this game there.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the demons could have just given him this game and say, "You have all of eternity to finish this game. Go ahead," and that would have been a perfect torture for him. Mm-hmm.
But in that playthrough, did anyone who reset Pascal, did anyone talk with him afterwards?
Oh yeah. I mean, you go back to Pascal's village and just, he says that he doesn't understand why it's so empty and so quiet and so beautiful, if I'm remembering correctly, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he also has all the cores of the children, and he sells them to you as junk because he doesn't remember what they are.
Oh. I forgot about that. Why'd you have to remind me?
Because it's part of the gut-wrenching. No. It's what you deserve. I mean, I reset him too because you have to if you want to get all the weapons and all the trophies. And I was like, if I ever want to be a completionist when I come back to this game, I want the option. But even though the chapter select makes it a trivial thing to change your mind if you want to, but
and I think it's so that reset choice on kind of a final note of it is so twisted because like through that playthrough especially we've seen that these robots, these machines, they don't learn really.
Yeah. There's a line even that explains that.
They are doomed to make the same mistakes over and over again. So by resetting him, he's probably going to do exactly what he just did.
Yeah, I mean, in the same turn, though, what does he do if you let him keep his memories? You know what I mean? I feel like in that circumstance, like the volume of pain that Pascal's going to experience cripples him into no longer being able to do the things he was able to do. So I think you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
The game doesn't really answer that question, too.
Yeah.
If you don't do anything, if you just leave him, he doesn't appear again. You don't see him again. And so it's up to you, I guess, to interpret whether that means that he continues living and finds a way to work through it, or if he just, jumps into that canyon with all the other other machines that you find in that side quest, the machines who tried to kill themselves by throwing themselves into the ravine by the commercial district.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Something like that.
Going back in time a little bit, we don't know how many times this has happened.
I think
we know that there's been in this game that it views these replays and new endings as cycles basically. So it's possible that Pascal has built his machine village, had it burned down to the ground, and then and then him and others be reset to rebuild it and then burn it down again. It's possible this has happened dozens of times.
No. I think the game hints at that heavily with the various in Root B, 9S has that hacking sequence where he explains about how the machines will keep doing the same thing. If they fail at a task, they'll just keep repeating the mistake over and over. They don't learn from their mistakes. And then there's the fact that Pascal he's a unique model. There's no other machine in the game that looks like him. And you could possibly infer that means he's an older model that has just survived and repeated the same cycle over and over again.
It's possible that the bipeds that Pascal had in his village weren't all like little stubby-legged trash cans. And I want to back to robot designs. I think that it's very deliberate the way that the most of the robots in this game are these sort of little cylinders with blank faces. or that are sometimes a little bit more complicated. Like you have the stacking ones and the ones that are more humanoid and bipedal, but they all sort of start with these rounded edges and these cylinders and blank faces. I think that's a really deliberate choice to make them seem sort of like having a non-threatening demeanor while the players know they're dangerous, and also just to be like an expression of blankness. Like these are. They remind me of Dragon Quest slimes because, of course, they do. me being who I am, but just the blank expression, the sort of signature look of the game is I think the signature design in this game, other than 2B and 9S themselves, are these robots, and they're such a way that they can be violent or peaceful or regular enemies or something you want to help. Just I don't know. Just the blank slate nature of them, I think, is a very, very deliberate choice, and I kind of love them.
Yeah, I think that was kind of an intentional choice because I remember even back in Route A, I kept thinking. Even before you meet Pascal, when you get to the amusement park and there's robots or machines that are not, they're just having fun, they don't want to fight you. I kept thinking, we're not meant to view these machines as universally evil the way that 2B and the Android, the Yorha androids at least, want to view them. I kept wondering if the game was going to have a big arc about that sort of ultimate philosophical question of, are they inherently our enemies? Are they inherently evil? Do we have to kill all of them? Or is it possible for them to change? Or is it possible for us to have a peace with them? And I mean, they kind of do, but they didn't necessarily go into it the way that I expected them to. In fact, I kind of felt like the introduction of the twin girls and the new sort of life controlling force over the machine life forms felt a little out of left field. Like I understood the explanation given, especially there was a lot of discussion given to that, and you find one of like Jackass's research notes where she kind of breaks down what happened after Adam and Eve were destroyed, and I get it, but it also felt a little weird. I was expecting a different direction, not sort of just like we're a new amalgamation. We formed a new network and we've formed conclusions about humans and androids, and you all still suck. So yeah,
I mean, and it's not even a new network so much as the oldest network of them all.
For me, I actually kind of like that it goes away from the direction of exploring, are machines inherently good, are machines inherently bad? And it kind of, I think that it answers that question sort of inherently by just saying yes and no and not at all. And to me, the machine network element instead it sort of like is like that voice in the back of our heads all the time, and in particular 9S, who I want to talk a lot about here. The voice in the back of 9S's head about like the idea that nothing means anything and nothing matters regardless of yes, no, maybe so. And I think that those other questions have been explored a lot in JRPGs, whereas this one and the game and the issues that are explored here I don't think are explored nearly as frequently in games. So I mean I do think it's out of left field, but for me, like I like it. I don't know. So it works for me.
I just kept wanting them to address the obvious, like, sticking point. You're all robots.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
androids, machines, they're all robots. Like,
at some point,
they're all automata, you could even say.
They realize later that the machine cores are the same as the android cores, right? Doesn't that happen at some point in the library?
Yes, in the library you learn that it's not all androids, but the ones in the Yorha project, their black boxes are based on machine cores. So because remember, like the first androids were made in the 3000s before the aliens invaded and made the first machines. But still, like the game already teases the question, what's the difference between a machine and an android, a little bit, like from very early, and then the library makes it clear that there's even fewer differences than 9S had assumed. And going into this, I think that one sort of important distinction is 2B, A2, and 9S's attitudes towards the machines all sort of eventually go to this neutral place, but like 2B hates machines and executes them out of duty more than anything else. A2 has a really tragic revenge backstory that is probably considerably older than all the other characters in the game. To wit that she may have seen this cycle happen multiple times for all we know, since she's disconnected from the Yorha bunker, and could probably expose the cover up completely if she wanted to. And 9S goes into this with an inquisitive mind, and a more wanting to understand, a feeling of wanting to understand more than 2B or A2, that gets him, flying too close to the sun, as it were, with the information of Yorha and the nature of machines. It's so crazy that this game takes a sci-fi concept that all four of us have seen probably dozens of times, what is humanity? What's the difference between a human and a human intelligence and an artificial intelligence? It takes these concepts and has them go in some traditional directions and some truly wild directions in a way that got me completely attached. And I think that Yoko Taro, that manipulative bastard, gets us so attached only to, just rip our hearts out of our chests.
This might be kind of a difficult conversion for it, but I kind of read it between the machines and the androids, somewhat in a similar space to how race is viewed in modern society, and how there's all this biological essentialism, and there's like these like very racist ideas as to like how how people from the African continent are built versus white folks and stuff like that. And it's like, I mean, it's all ridiculous. It's all just this created stratification, and it's really I'm not sure that's exactly what they were going for in the game, but I think it can be seen in that light as this ridiculous exercise of perhaps there was a perhaps there was this being who allowed for these stratifications and for these forces to create racism out of material conditions. And in a way, they're kind of laughing at us, and they're like, "Why do you keep repeating these same cycles of violence and of hatred when you're just beating yourselves into the ground?"
Yeah, I mean, the whole game could just be a commentary on history repeating itself, just the very concept of that, and having it in the context of race or even just war and global conflict, because this whole, we talked about this in the previous episode, but this is a war that's being fought over and over with whose root causes the defending humanity from machines, this alien invasion that brought the machines to Earth, with the originators of the war long dead. And history repeats itself because this war and this conflict in the war just happens over and over, and it is completely pointless. And then during the end credits of Route E, like, they even ask you, is there any point to any of this?
I mean, I think that, and I like that it points out that the things that they think they're fighting for or that they pretend to be fighting for aren't real. And, in 9S's rage over the meaninglessness of everything and everyone else's sort of acceptance of that, I feel like Taro is definitely taking a shot at things like people warring over religion, people warring over national, and people warring over race. I think it's all there. And I think Taro even said with the original NieR that one of the things he was criticizing was the Iraq War. So I certainly don't think, I think that he's pointing out the meaninglessness of the differences and, how those distinctions aren't really real, because the things that we put our faith in, like, Pascal's wager and this idea that you have to believe in God because you should, because you need to be afraid, because what's the other alternative? Again, you putting your faith in something that ultimately is meaningless will lead you down a path that leads to conflict, and it doesn't mean anything, and you should instead talk to each other, which seems simple, but I think that the game does a really good job of getting us there.
Well, we've gotten on quite a few tangents just from asking the question, what was a change between A route and the future routes that we found interesting or enlightening. The one for me is probably just how much we learn about A2. Like in Route A, you think of her as just a rogue android, but in the future routes, you realize just how the war and her life has embittered her to everything going on Earth, especially a hatred of machines. And there's a side quest that illustrates this specifically. After the A2 boss fight, in any of the routes, including A, you can speak to an enemy, and anemone. I'm not going to get that right at one time this entire month, and I apologize. You can speak to anemone and basically find some residual data from A2's fights. So if you just visit some semi-random spots from around the map and you get some A2 data and show it to anemone, and anemone will hint that A2 and anemone used to be close friends, or at least allies. And later on in C route, you can get to you can unlock some archives. That's basically just a text only story. Well, no, you know what? I lied. It's not text only. It's text with accompanying music that goes into some important missions that took place. Like it sounds like at the start of the founding of Yorha. So presumably in the between 3800 and 5200 AD. So and with Anemone predating that, and A2 being one of the maybe very first Yorha units, gives you and the knowledge that our 9S was built in the 11,000s, gives you an idea of how much war and despair Anemone and A2 have seen. So just giving context to A2, especially with that side quest, made her a much more interesting character to me. But that also goes into a topic that I wanted to get to in this episode. These side quests, both for just the dialogue that you get and the concepts they explore and the drama that you see in these various side quests, are very special. Like, some side quests are I don't know, collecting some animal hides for a merchant, and are basically just, not important in the long run. But some of them have ties to other characters in the story, or illustrate or foreshadow ideas that will be extremely important later in the story, and are if not essential, just really incredible as part of the story tapestry of NieR. And one that we mentioned, I think, in the previous episode and off air, is the Wandering Couple. Now, I have a confession to make. I didn't finish the Wandering Couple again because I got cut off in the same part of the story again. But it was not due to lack of effort. I knew about the Wandering Couple side quest. I knew I had to go to the Flooded City at a certain part of the game. I thought that I would be cut off from the side quest when I did the story stuff in the Flooded City, but that I was slightly incorrect in that assumption. What you have to do is do that side quest in the Flooded City before Anemone even tells you about it. So once Anemone mentions the mission in the Flooded City, that side quest is shut off, and that's what happened to me. So again, due to a mistake on my part, and not by ignoring or forgetting, did I miss the Wandering Couple side quest this time. So, Caitlin, can you give us an abridged version of it, and then especially talk about its resolution, which I have not officially seen, but may yet later?
Sure. Okay, so you run into this couple of resistance members first I believe in Pascal's village, and they want to just go away. They're done fighting. They just want to be on their own and forge their own path on their own. So you help them try to do that, and then you run into them again, and things have gone to shit. When you find them in the flooded city, they are separated. One of them is severely wounded, and you have to try and help them find their friend. And you do that. You do eventually get them back together, and the woman of the two, it's a woman and a man, she convinces her beau, I guess. I think it's implied that they're not just partners, but they're together. She convinces him that they have to go back to the resistance because they obviously can't make it on their own. But she also convinces him that they have to wipe their memories. Otherwise, I guess, they would be deserters and might be destroyed or whatnot. So she convinces him to do that, and you are asked to facilitate the memory wipe. And conveniently, we wipe the guy's memories first. And then the plot twist occurs, and she reveals that she is going to tweak certain aspects of his personality that she doesn't like, or that she thinks won't allow them to survive out there on their own. And that not only is she doing this, she has done this multiple times in the past to change this person, this android, her partner, into this sort of ideal partner for her. I said I helped because I genuinely believed that I felt actually when I got to that point where they were like, let's go back to the resistance camp, wipe our memories and just go back. I was actually kind of like, it didn't seem like it was this amazing ending. I was actually kind of disappointed. And then when she reveals her true colors, I felt so used and I felt dirty. I have never felt so sick about a side quest, in part because of my participation in this horrible manipulative scheme that this woman has been running for her partner for possibly years and maybe decades or centuries, depending on how long they've been together.
Now I read about this, so I knew how the side quest ended because I was so upset that I missed the event flag for it that I did some reading on my own. But this is I have so many thoughts about this. This is treating a relationship like an experiment, where she's able to start a new experiment, tweak some variables, and have it play out again, and which is sick at one level. At another level, this is another commentary on history repeating itself and just the cyclical nature of NieR Automata, where we don't know how many times this relationship has happened. For all we know, dozens or hundreds. And there's
doesn't she say it's the sixth or seventh time?
Yeah,
okay, she says six. She actually says it a number of times.
Yeah.
Still, that is a startling number.
Still a lot.
Yeah. And that made me think, some weird thoughts like. Would I ever have the opportunity to, if I ever had the opportunity to reset a relationship and try it again, like Groundhog Day style, like would I want that? Like how this is just messing with people in a way that's not okay. And also, just after I beat the game and I thought about the different side quests, this made me realize this is
9S, yeah,
a little like 2B and 9S, but it's also not like the machines. Machines repeat actions in a cyclical way and make the same mistakes over and over, but they put in the same variables every time because they're reset every time. This person is doing the same experiment multiple times, but it is still repeating it, even though she's treating it like an experiment and not like a failed cycle of infinite repetition. But she's still repeating. It's again, I think it's just a larger commentary on history repeats itself, and everything's pointless.
I think it's also a commentary on the problematic aspects of relationships and trying to change your partner or change yourself for your partner in order to continue the relationship or to go forward together. Like, obviously humans can't do this yet, and I certainly hope that we don't ever get to the point where we can, but I can see a relation between, at least between her choices here and, you know, certain relationships where there's something that doesn't work, and they, you know, if you don't just absolutely give up and break up, you know, you can find relationships where one person makes changes for the other, or where one person wants the other to change in, you know, ways that suit them, even if it doesn't necessarily work for their partner. And I just, this is sort of like taking that to the extreme. It's not just like talking to your partner and saying, I don't like it when you leave things here, or when you know, do this, or when you say this or whatnot. Can you change that? Can we work on that? Instead, it's going right to, well, I'm just going to reprogram you so that you don't do that again because I don't like it, and then we're going to be hunky-dory. Like, it's this idealized, well, not idealized, it's sort of, I don't know.
Deconstruction.
Yeah, this deconstruction of that sort of ideal, like, harmony between two people, but it's taking advantage of someone and forcing them to be changed. Actually, if you've seen season 2 of Westworld, it's a lot like a certain sequence in that season that is also extremely disturbing for the exact same reason.
The idea of these things happening in cycles and history repeating itself is, in a context of restarting a computer, it doesn't disturb us, but the idea of restarting a person in this way does disturb us because that's normal. We are humans that feel empathy this way, but like NieR doing it and almost having them equated to each other, like all of us thought that resetting Pascal was an act of mercy, but this person.
I
think Joe makes a compelling point
I think
that.
There's no right answer with Pascal. There are problems with every choice, even walking away. Because I think the ideal answer is to stay with Pascal and help him work through this. But I don't agree with killing him, and I also think that wiping his memories doesn't help him at all.
Like, do we sympathize with a video game character that remembers every previous playthrough? Like, maybe. Like, the Wandering Couple, it is a different situation because she's manipulating a person. But I think that, like, the idea of NieR Automata's multiple playthroughs suggests that 2B and A2 have seen this happen so many times is analogous to us playing a video game, but every time we play the video game, the main character remembers every struggle and every event from previous playthroughs, and that's kind of effed up. That, again, the commentary is much darker and deeper than it's kind of effed up, but that's just one idea here. And the Wandering Couple, I think, is one of the most compelling side quests in the game, if not the most, because it takes that idea of resetting, but in a way that we're applying it to a very human-like android, and that touches us in a different way. I was wrong in saying it was the same, or implying that, but I think that there's a connected thread between this idea of resetting that the Wandering Couple explores in a specific way.
That guy needs to find a new girlfriend.
Yeah.
Stats.
Dump her ass. Absolutely.
Unfortunately, he cannot make that choice.
You can't. I don't think you can find them again afterwards, can you?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so you can't go and like tell him, dude, this girl's been messing with your mind for like at least 6 or 7 times. Get the fuck out.
And it's also kind of the rearticulation of the ship of Theseus. Idea that like just bashes you over the head in this game in terms of beings wondering if I'm still me due to whatever I've gone through, starting from the very I guess you can call it a side quest, the kind of junk trader in the resistance camp, and he's like, yep, I've replaced everything on my body. And they're like, well, what about your leg? He's like, well, I'm not going to replace my leg. That's the last thing I have left. I need to keep that leg in place, even if it's so much more of a detriment to the rest of my body. And we see this in the Wandering Couple too, because it's that the bow is basically the ship in the ship of Theseus, because he's having this done to himself, and he's not even being given the choice to wonder, am I still myself throughout this, because it's someone else who is making that decision for him. And we don't even know if she still sees him in the same way, or if this is the eighth revision, or this is the eighth partner that she has.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's a scary thought.
After 7 resets, who are you anymore? Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way before.
See, this no other game can make you just like pause like that, because it's deep thoughts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this game makes you think things and feel things that no other game ever has, at least personally.
I agree.
Love it.
Can we talk about Simone?
Yes. Oh God.
Yeah, during the B playthrough, after every major event, or at least most major events, including boss fights, you get either like a detached set of dialogue or almost like a short play or something that either has you observe something in the past from either characters that are obviously connected to the stuff you just did, or ones that don't seem as connected. But after you beat Simone, they give you a mostly text with some stark images story about a machine that was obsessed with the idea of beauty, and obsessed with using the idea of beauty to attract another robot, another machine that she was attracted to, but ultimately it not working, and like what has she become as a result of her obsession with beauty. And it becomes clear that that Simone, of course, this robot was the one you just defeated. And if you do the Jean-Paul, the philosopher machine side quest, it's hinted at that he was the object of her affection, and that makes Simone also into a tragic figure, and also I don't even know what to think about this. It takes an idea of self-obsession or materialism or just obsession with appearance to such a weird extreme with these machine characters that just makes all of it just sadder and scarier.
It totally recontextualizes like your first encounter with her in Route A. Like, she's just a boss in Route A. She's a opera singing boss who's annoying in Route A, but you don't know anything about her until you get that text dialogue in Route B, and then suddenly it's like, oh man, like this game is so good at making you come back to a character or a sequence that you thought you had figured out. Like you had all these preconceptions based on one side of it, and then changing everything, even with just something as simple as voiceless dialogue on a black screen. Like I think I mentioned on the last episode, I've never been as affected by just straight text on a plain black screen as I have by this game. And Simone is like, that's one of the first instances of that kind of happening, and it's a gut punch.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm on record as saying I think it was the best game of the last decade, and this is the moment where when I'm playing it, I'm like, okay, now I get it, because I had heard about. I played it pretty recently after its release, but I did, and its reputation sort of preceded it. But as soon as I got to this moment, I was like, okay, now I understand, because it with the gameplay too, because like there's a moment where she's shouting at you like, look at me, and you can't control the camera, and you can't look at her, and it's just amazing the way that it blends gameplay in that silent moment. And I mean, Simone de Beauvoir having a relationship with Jean-Paul Sartre, and her being like a major feminist and sort of philosopher of her own accord in real life, and just like seeing the different ways that things are coming together, and just like the devastation that you feel over her story. I mean, it's I hate to be hyperbolic about this game. I know I am, but man, this sequence, ooh, I love it. I'll leave it there.
And in that moment of when you can't control the camera, you're essentially playing the part of Jean-Paul in that, because he won't look at her during that, and you're basically fulfilling that. And it's interesting that there's kind of this flipping on its head of the Sartre and de Beauvoir relationship, because I'm not an expert in either of them. I have not read them much, but apparently, like, he was very jealous of her, and very jealous of the lovers and partners that she had besides him. And so it's kind of this flipping of the history, where in this game it's her kind of reaching out in vain, and in our history it was basically the opposite.
I mean, she's a heavy feminist, but I mean, she has this like lifelong obsession with this man who treats her really poorly, and so I think that it ultimately ends up being sort of critical of her a little bit. So I mean, I think that it's critical of her, the way that she presented sort of being different from the way that she lived in real life, and I think that's how it's reflected in that fight, to me at least.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the, like, some of the other philosophers in the game, I don't really get a gauge on like what they're doing, even though like the Hegel robot in the desert, the many-legged centipede thing, that its smaller components become Lao Tzu and Shao Tzu or something like that. I don't understand. I don't understand the Hegel machine and what that even is supposed to mean. Even though like I've read quite a bit of Hegel, and like I get his concepts, I have no idea what that's supposed to be.
Okay, now I do want to correct you. The Chinese philosopher you're referring to is Lao Tzu, who is sometimes called Lao Tzu. Chao Tzu is a character from Dragon Ball Z, and very different.
Yeah, okay.
Very different from Lao Tzu. But the
well, yeah, I couldn't remember because there's the second one, because there's Lao Tzu and then there's a second Roshi. Is it Roshi? Koshi?
That's also a Dragon Ball character, in fact.
Okay.
I'm being unfair, but
I know.
But there's so much philosophy commentary just by the names of the robots. I forget the name. I thought that the Leviathan robot that you fight by the flooded city was going to be called Hobbes, just because of Hobbes's work, The Leviathan. But that was a little too on the nose for Taro. I think he ended up naming it something else. And the skit you see after that boss fight is basically a robot child that was exiled because it was too destructive, and whenever it tried to act, it just hurt everything around him, and it was and which basically contextualizes that whole fight, which is one of the more intense in the game, as like a cry for help or a child throwing a tantrum, rather than a robot with more of an objective or even any real malice in it, which was tragic in its own way. But I'm not sure about the philosophical connection to that robot, mostly because I don't remember what its name is. But let's talk a little bit more about the video game part of the video game, just so I can get my mind out of this dark place it's crawled into.
Just keep staring into the abyss.
Yeah,
it gets fun after a while.
The big change between using 2B or A2 versus 9S is the abundance of hacking. 9S's hacking ability, which replaces using a second weapon, basically takes you to I don't know, like a top-down shooter / mini adventure game, like I don't know, like an old tank attack game or something.
It's like a dual stick shooter, really. Yeah.
Yeah, right? like Asteroids, sort of without the rotation nonsense. But that part of gameplay feels like almost an innocuous minigame. Like, oh, this is how I hack things when you're playing it in for most of 9S's route. But by the end of the game, like you use that hacking minigame whenever you enter someone's mind for any context. Usually the context is hacking, but like they use the framework of that hacking minigame when you see someone hacking into 9S and destroy the memories of 2B, which is something that Yorha is trying to do because of their continued cover up and their recycling of the 9S units. And it's also used when for the part of the AB routes where 9S is not involved after the Coastal City battles, where 9S is picked up by Adam and then put on that crucifix. They use that minigame, or 9S navigating his own mind in the form of that minigame, for the conversation he has with Adam. It like starts out in that, and then it ends up going into a text chain where Adam even mentions specifically, "You want to fuck 2B, don't you?" Which was not.
I'm not sure that's actually what he says.
What do you think he says? It was F star
it
star
could be
star.
Any four-letter word.
I think it's kill.
Yep.
I thought it was.
I'm with you on that, Zach.
I thought it was fuck. I really did.
I mean, I think that Taro is playing on that, but I mean, this gets into back to story beats. But I think that it's hinted at that 9S is, and A2 says this at the end of the game, that 9S is aware of what 2B has done to him, or 2E, I guess. 2B has done to him throughout the course of the game. And I don't want to get too far into like fan service why 2B is dressed the way that she is, but I think that
we should talk about that a little bit, because that was conspicuously absent from our discussion at the last episode.
I think that 9S certainly sexualizes her, which which is why I think that he plays on that, bleeping out the word thing. But I think that ultimately playing on like men's desire to like destroy what they want because they can't have it, because 9S clearly wants her, is played on there. So I think that either word works, but I think that ultimately kill is really what I think the word is. But either one, I think, gets to the same idea for who 9S is. I mean, we haven't talked about the fact that I think 9S is really the villain of this game yet, but we'll get there.
And it also plays on the ending of the A route, because like when 2B strangles 9S, it's in a
she's straddling him. There's more than one way to strangle someone, but that's a very that I thought was
just used the sword. It was broken, but she managed to kill Eve with it. So just use your fucking sword, lady.
Nope, they had to make it as sensual a strangulation almost as possible, which is,
and they're both grunting, and it's like,
yep,
yeah. There's more than a little bit of male gaze in a lot of the imagery of this game. Starting with how the female presenting androids are dressed. Because 2B has, she has very feminine curves and suggestive clothes, and I don't think that's in doubt. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't think that's up for debate. And A2, who is, she wears a version of the same outfit as 2B, except it is stripped and torn from probably from decades of not having a change of clothes, or centuries of not having a change of clothes. And again, it's sexually suggestive and definitely an intentional design on Yoko Taro's part, but and 9S's design is basically just shorts and a shirt that really communicates youth to me more than anything else. It communicates that he is a young boy more so than what I think the clothing of 2B or the female androids show. And again, it's intentional, and I don't want to say problematic straight away, but I'm not sure I'm not sure it's a choice he needed to make. Extremely male gaze. I don't think it's necessary.
I think you can justify it via trying to filter it through 9S's perspective, and I've read some essays that try to justify it. But at the end of the day, I think Taro's trying to have his cake and eat it too.
Yeah, none of those are
hot girls. But he also wants to criticize the fact that we want hot girls. But if I had one criticism of this game, and I don't have many, it would be that. I still think that ultimately it is very male gazy. I agree with you.
Those essays you alluded to are no essay that I want to read. I'm a heterosexual male who is attracted to the female form, and I think that 2B and A2 are designed in a sexy manner, and I worry that this cheapens the game to me. If they'd have made a different choice, I think they could have had the same game, but this is what they went for, and I'm not always okay with it.
I feel like 2B's design is so close to being nice and classy, and it's just like, why do you need to have the crotch visible? Why do we need to see her underwear? Why do you have to blow off her skirt at the end of the routes A and B when she's fighting? Like,
there is so much upskirt in this game that it is troubling.
There's actually an achievement for it. Or a trophy for it.
Yeah.
Good.
So that. And then, I get that A2 is wearing tattered, like barely any clothes because she's been on the run for, however many centuries. But it's like, I got tired of looking at her, the short, bum pants that she's got on. And I really kind of dislike the fact that she actually has a decent DLC outfit, but you have to be high leveled to be able to get it, so you basically get it at the end of the game. And I'm like, damn it, I could have used that earlier because it actually looks really good on her. And it's surprise, it's pants and a full top.
That's what I used in this playthrough, and it made it much more pleasant.
Yeah, I feel like Taro and the development team totally could have explored these psychosexual ideas without making their characters like male gaze sex objects in that way.
Yeah, I agree. You can have your cake and eat it too, and not have the characters designed to in a way that hypersexualizes them.
Yeah, it was very intentional that they have them done this way, and I think they could have made every single point that they made with more flattering clothes. I think that is. Or I should say, flattering is the wrong adjective. More just less provocative clothes, and I think that would have been an improvement, almost top to bottom. You can call us prudes. I get it, but like, why defend this? It's really unnecessary. But again, I mean, I find these characters attractive, so maybe I'm the problem, more of the problem than the solution.
But did you play the game because you found to be attractive? Because I certainly didn't, so I don't think they were the problem.
I played this game because it was very acclaimed, and it won,
right.
and a lot of people within RPG fans said we should play it.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a very literal reason.
I think that, yeah,
right.
It's probably also partly like them wanting to sell, figures and everything like that of it, because I'm sure plenty of people have 2B and A2 figures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I want to own a 2B figure, but it's just because I admire her as a character.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So we have talked about the C-D endings a little bit, but we've been all over the place in this discussion. But after the events of the of Yorha getting wiped out, based biologic virus, it appears. Every single Yorha unit, with the exception of 9S, gets corrupted by a virus. 2B fights off a lot of her comrades. They escape the bunker before the commander can completely be consumed by the virus. There's a slightly difficult portion of the game where you have to sort of 2B has to stumble to safety, but her her visual UI and motor functions are sort of coming and going while you do it, and there are sections of hostile machines you have to navigate through. I had to play that segment multiple times because I kept getting hit by a robot and get kicked into the ravine.
I messaged you about this sequence, and this is the one I was talking about.
Yeah,
this is the one that was hard. Yeah,
this is also annoying if you're trying to get all the endings, because you have to do it several times, and every time you have to start from the flooded city and go back.
Yeah, not the most fun part of the game, but I think a powerful moment with her. Her virus. There's almost like a progress bar of how much the virus has consumed her, and it ends with her going to the commercial zone that's sort of in between the city and the forest, and A2 meeting her, and Mercy killing her, which we did mention earlier, and 9S witnessing the Mercy killing without the added context of 2B being consumed by the virus. And that kicks off, the segments where you control A2 and 9S alternately. And also right after the virus stuff strikes, a giant tower just sprouts out of the ground. And I say giant tower, but it's supported by 3 big pillars, and there's also these resource units that are like miniature towers that spring out in 3 different parts of the map. It like something going on with the machines or Yorha or both is entering its final phase, and this tower coming up out of nowhere is an indicator of that. And the game briefly becomes a Zelda game where 9S has to assemble 3 keys to enter this dungeon, and his portions of the CD route are going through these resource units, which are like miniature towers, to collect the keys at the end of each of them. And there's a lot of story stuff that happens in these, like the segment where you see in his hacking minigame, like you see his memories of 2B being attacked, and he's getting increasingly like just violent and angry because he's doing this to try and end whatever's going on, but also take revenge on A2 and as many machines as possible for the death of 2B.
I mean, I actually think that really what he's doing is just trying to find a way to destroy everything and everyone. I mean, when you say that you see the 2B units being attacked, it's actually him attacking the unit at the end there. I mean, I think that like you just see like a big pile of rage from him at like losing the one thing that meant something to him at 2B. So I don't know. I think this is really where they established 9S as being sort of the counterpoint to 2B in terms of dealing with the meaninglessness of things by going through these towers and such.
And I think with that, we should also point out that Nanis's voice actor is really good.
Yeah.
I just want to toss that out there.
The man can really scream, whoever it is. I don't know the name, but he can scream.
Excellent. Yeah.
He has to explore a range of emotions, that's for damn sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a whole lot of melodrama in a fantastic way. Seeing 9S like this is, it's very painful. It's really painful to see him in this state, especially when you contrast it with how he was earlier in the game. This kind of goofball, like, hey, my friends call me Nines. Can you call me Nines?
Yeah.
And yeah, it really is heartbreaking.
Yeah, this robot boy who was sort of innocent and inquisitive in a way, just becoming this petulant teenage rage monster is a real surprising change. And there's almost an opposite change that happens to A2 at the same time, because she seems to be completely motivated by revenge and killing all machines if possible at the beginning of when you control her. And then you get context for that revenge when you look at the story during the when you hear it from Anemone. But then A2's interactions with Pascal, if anything, really, really calm her down. Like, if anything, she's like a more intense, angry version of 2B at the beginning of the C route, and ends up being maybe like the most sympathetic or empathetic of the trio at the end of C route, which is also surprising, and I'm not sure if I believe it as much, because like it could really her centuries of hate be wiped out by a couple days of building slides for machine children.
I mean, I'm not really sure if I have an answer for it, but I think going on Joe's point, I think that it makes 9S's sort of descent into just rage and the rage at the pointlessness at everything more heartbreaking, because he's the one who does empathize. He's the one who in the B route makes us as the audience and us as the player empathize with machines like Simone. And the fact that he has that knowledge and he's still willing to just want to destroy everything and everyone, I think makes him all the more heartbreaking.
Yeah, the more he learns, the more he realizes the worthlessness of it all.
Right.
In a bit of a twist on the old Socrates quote. But when you do assemble the keys and go up the tower, you learn a lot of important lore and context for all of this, including the roles of Devila and Padilla, the redhead twins at the camp. That goes back to another connection to NieR 1, where not the exact same two twins that we're dealing with in this game, but two others were either traitors or major villains or manipulators or all three of those things in the first NieR.
I mean, they're at fault for humanity dying, and you see that the two twins they're referring to are the twins that you actually see in the original NieR.
Yeah,
and they're the ones who caused the end of humanity.
In the flashback sequences for the twins in NieR Automata, they mentioned two of the twin units from another village did this and this and this, and I was pretty sure that was referring to the first NieR.
It is,
and so yeah, they're responsible for the epidemic that wiped out humanity, but also made it the NieR Automata twins made it clear that they were observation units who were just trying to be like a control group and watch everything happen around them. Which, and going back to the cyclical nature of this game, just makes me wonder how many centuries or millennia of these cycles repeating have Devila and Padilla watched.
I mean, 8,000 at least.
Yeah,
yeah.
So it's at the very end when or before at the very beginning of the tower sequence when 9S is trying to hack into the tower, Devila and Padilla cover for him and end up sacrificing their lives so that he can get in there, and up the tower it's some conventional fighting, a couple pretty flashy boss battles, but it ends, I mean, with maybe I think the most memorable confrontation in the whole game, where A2 and 9S face each other, with 9S wanting to end it all if possible, and A2 wanting to stop the tower because she believes that it's going to fire a missile directly at the moon and clear the last remains of humanity. The DNA information allegedly stored there, and I'm not even sure if like is there anything in the moon? Is it just an answering machine with "Glory to Mankind" messages, or is there really is there really some replicant data there? Because I know that there's no humans there, but I thought it was mentioned that there was some some data on the human genome being stored there.
They say that there's a human genome data on like servers on the moon, like that's like the last remnant, but the machines already have most of that data.
This is not a podcast about the last. This is not a podcast about the last remnant. If you want a podcast on the last remnant, please email retro@rpgfan.com.
Make us play it. I think this is kind of an articulation of faith in some way, because A2 is now if there is a sliver of a possibility of a future of any sort, I want to protect it.
And how crazy is it that she, who has seen maybe the most darkness of all of these people, since she has a memory that goes back 6,000 plus years, and was motivated by revenge for so many years, how crazy is it that she still sticks to her original mission of glory to mankind and protecting the last vestiges of humanity?
Well, I think you can explain that a little bit, because she has 2B's memories with her.
That's true. Yeah. That's right. The pod uploaded some of 2B's memories into her, or 2B's complete memories into her.
It comes from her sword, right?
The sword. She has the sword. Yeah.
Oh, that's what it is. And then it's from her that we learn about 2B actually being a 2E unit.
Yeah, and I think especially in that ending sequence, before you get to choose who you want to play as, and that determines whether you get ending C or D based on who you choose. Her talking to 9S, and she talks to him briefly when they meet in one of the resource recovery units as well. She's telling him about things that 2B wanted or thought. She's assimilated a fair amount of 2B's memories, and even I think some of her, maybe not her personality, but just sort of like her feelings about life in general. Because I feel like once you see A2 actually interacting with 2B's memories, she kind of changes a little bit. And it's right after that first instance where she has to go and talk with Pascal, and instead of outright just killing everyone there, she she helps them and she does all that stuff, helping them escape when the village is attacked. So like, there's an interesting kind of, it's not like 2B takes over, but it's sort of like they kind of become one almost.
Yeah, and if anything, that just makes 9S angrier. Mm-hmm. When he realizes that, when he understands that there's parts of 2B or 2B's memories inside 9S, which he views as her cold-blooded killer. It basically, it does not help 9S's demeanor to have A2 and 2B sort of blend into the same entity. Mm-hmm. I think both the C and D ending end with the tower crumbling, but with A2's conclusion, feeling that she's saved the human data on the moon, and 9S getting the curious ending that this tower isn't trying to destroy the moon; it's trying to take all of the information and data that's accumulated through this whole conflict and send it and shoot it into space like a space capsule or an ark to hopefully land on a new planet and begin the experiment anew, or at least find a new home for it. And he speaks with the data of Adam and Eve in a text text accompanied by music, like several of the several pieces of the story in the second half of the game were presented, which I thought was more optimistic than I was expecting out of the conclusion to 9S's tale.
The actual ending though was really like.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Both of those are endings, but that's not the actual ending.
That's not the ending.
The actual ending is perpetrated by the two real main characters of this story, Pod 01042 and Pod 153, the floating sort of computer assistants of 2B and 9S that have been with you the whole time. And this is going to sound insane. It may be the craziest thing that we have said, that anyone has said on this crazy podcast. Early in the 9S route, there is a conversation between the two pods that is pretty innocuous. It's something like, I have collected data from 2B. Yes, I have collected data from 9S. I propose that we routinely share data so we can compare notes on our two Android charges. Agreed. Let us share data more frequently. I thought they were flirting. And I truly thought their story.
I think they kind of were. I don't think.
Again, I'm not 100. I don't think I'm wrong exactly, but I thought that was going to. I thought that was the start of a.
With DC Douglas, if you had the chance, I'm just saying.
Well, of course, yes, but the point I was trying to, well, not a point, but what I'm saying is I thought that was the first vignette of a budding romance between their pods, which I thought was hilarious and adorable, but. It sort of continues to be adorable, but maybe considerably less hilarious when you sort of see the two pods share data over the course of the second part of the game, starting with the B route, and most of it is sensible or innocuous conversation between them, but by the end it's them commenting on the nature of Yorha and the experiment and what to do at the end, and at the time where everyone's memory is going to be wiped, and they're going to start the cycle anew. They Pod 042, the white one that accompanies 2B, decides maybe he doesn't want to, and then there's a conversation between 042 and 153 about should we resist the reset this time, and it ends up with them agreeing to try and stop a new cycle from continuing, and they manifest that by having you do battle with the game's credits, and
amazing,
and which is basically signifying the credits as the cycle starting anew, like one thread ending and then a new one beginning, but also presenting it so literally in a segment that got so intense that my hand started to cramp at the end.
You messaged me, and I thought you just haven't given up yet. You need to just quit earlier.
Yeah, no, I really hadn't given up at all, and I was fighting the special effects studios and the German localization team. But before I got
far, then
I got pretty far. Hey man, I'm telling you, I've played a lot of Ikaruga. I even had a I even had Death Smile for the Xbox 360 if you want to play a intense shooter game about witches and firing spells out of their black cats. Seriously, Death Smiles is all right. But anyway, but back to this. The shooting segment gets really, really intense. And it eventually the comments of instead of game over, new game, yes, no, the questions get like, isn't all this pointless? Are you going to admit you're just playing a silly video game and none of this matters?
Games are silly things. Oh,
yeah, and it
that's
just
my favorite.
Yeah, it just gets it gets more and more cutting, and eventually it gets to a point where you can admit that you need help, and then dozens, if not hundreds, of other players can sort of join you and sort of encircle your ship, like they're option upgrades in a Gradius game or something. But basically, your ship becomes a little, I don't know, a little
flotilla almost.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, a little flotilla of several ships, and which basically, I don't know, quintuples your offense at least. And whenever you get hit, instead of dying in 3 hits like normal, it just mentions that the data of one of the users that joined you was lost in a way that is oddly affecting. And sort of the two pods deciding that that you can survive with the help of others. And it takes you to a scene of the pods reassembling or recollecting the corpses of 9S and 2B. And also you see A2 in the background, suggesting that they were maybe not starting the cycle anew exactly, but at least trying to reassemble their old charges. I don't.
9S is still missing his arm as he would have been earlier. Mm-hmm. So the idea that maybe they're retaining their memories in an effort to not do what Pascal did.
Yeah, I don't 100% know what their intentions are, but it really felt like the pods, like sympathizing and wanting to help to the 3 androids and reassembling them so they can live on, was at least the idea they were communicating. And then
I think that comes across.
And then it goes into something even crazier. 153 says, do you want to help the next person that tries to survive the same way you were helped by others? It's a little bit more it's a little bit more eloquent than that. But in order to do that, you have to delete.
Did you do it?
You have to delete all your save data. And that at first that made me realize, oh man, those 7 or 8 people that all joined me, because I did get hit a couple times in the last sequence, and I saw people's data be lost. Those people are all players that sacrificed themselves and deleted their entire save data to help me. And so Joe mentioned that the Pascal decision had him walking around his apartment for 15 minutes. This is where I put the controller down and made myself a sandwich to think on this.
I said no. I'm selfish. There were some sequences that were hell for me in this game, and if I ever want to come back, I want that chapter skip. I don't want to do this again. So y'all have the rest of the PlayStation Nation to help you with this game. You don't have me. Sorry.
I thought about this, and I replay games sometimes. I'm not the kind of person that will play his favorite games over and over and over. Of course. And then I thought to myself, like, how likely was I to revisit this? How likely was I wanting to trophy hunt on this game? And would I value that more than the idea of just making this one single beautiful playthrough and then having it sort of end in a beautiful fire instead of just shelving it for an indeterminate time later? I deleted my save data.
Oh wow!
You know what? I am proud of you, Mike.
I thought about this. I said I had I named myself Retro for this playthrough, and the idea of me containing this entire playthrough for this podcast, and then some poor sap out in let's say Nevada, seeing someone named Retro join their little shmup flotilla to help them get through the end credits battle. That is a little bit. I think that is something beautiful, and I'll help that poor sap in Nevada. I don't know if I'll ever replay this game again. Maybe I will, and maybe I'll deliberately make different choices or deliberately finally do the wandering couple side quest. Instead of using the chapter select to do it, which in retrospect maybe I should have done that before deleting all of my data. It's gone. I don't know if I'll play this game ever again, but I have this specific memory of this playthrough and talking with you guys that will survive in a couple trophies on my PSN profile and these 2 podcasts.
This is the 3rd time I've played this game, and this is the first time that I allowed it to do it. And my save file was at the cap, so I had 99 hours on it. As we were playing through this time, I was at level 99, and I was just breezing through. I was able to play through really quickly. And I had unlocked all the trophies at this point. But, I felt guilty, and it's funny because Joe and Leona as well had made me feel guilty for not having deleted my data previously. I think that kind of taking a step back for a moment, the credit sequence, I think, even when I know it's coming, I start crying.
And then during the regular credits, they play "The Weight of the World," which is a beautiful, beautiful song. And I think they switch between multiple languages for it.
Yeah,
they do in this one. They also use like an 8-bit version at the beginning of
at the beginning of the very end of the shooting part
credits. I mean, I think that this whole game has spent all this time like sort of deconstructing philosophers and saying like they don't get to tell you that the search for meaning is problematic. I actually think that really what this game is saying is stop trying so hard and just like appreciate and enjoy and help each other, and who cares what means something. And Pascal at some point, like you give him a Nietzsche book and he reads it and he says, this is either very amazing or it's total nonsense. And I think Taro thinks it's all nonsense. And I think that destroying the creators is part of that. And so I think that when you're answering those questions, it becomes like this idea that there is meaning and you get to make the choice about who to help and how to help people. And so every time I said no, and I was being selfish, every time I said no, I felt really guilty about it. But I was honestly, I'm still being selfish. Like I have all the trophies. I've played this game 3 times in less than 3 years. It was time for me to engage in the philosophy of the game, which I think is that you need to help other people. Ultimately, who cares about all the rest of the questions and all the need and all the rest of the stuff? Help each other. Be kind to each other, be decent to each other, invest in each other, and who cares about the rest? And I think that's what the game is about, and I think that's what that save delete is about.
And Joe, you also deleted your data?
Yeah, as alluded to by my guilt tripping of Zach. But I immediately as soon as the question came up, I immediately said yes to it. And that's not because
you have to say yes multiple times because Pod042 it says, "Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure? There's no going back." And then after you say your final yes, it eliminates elements of the menu screen one by one, like your map options and all of your equipment. You just see it
slowly goes through and erases everything.
You see it deleted brick by brick.
And they did also do something similar to this in the first NieR, although to a less impactful, although with less impact, I think. It was kind of the early idea for it. But when I made that decision, I'm probably going to replay this game because I did not do everything in the game, and I would really like to engage with it more. But when I made the decision to end it and to forfeit all my data. It reminded me of a rally that Bernie had a bit ago. Not to get too political on this, but when he asked, are you willing to fight for someone you don't even know? And
that's perfect. It's literally what the game says.
It's exactly that. And so immediately when the question was posited, I was like, I'm absolutely here and for that. And I also probably felt quite guilty because I erased so much data. I am not good at twin stick. I'm not good at twin stick shooters. I'm not good at Ikaruga or shmups. Yeah. I think moments like this, I think it's an incredible, breathtaking ending, and I think this is why we play video games, right?
Yeah.
It's for moments like this, and it's not all of why we play video games, but it's for moments like this that you can't have this happen in anywhere else but interactive art.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have that same emotional stake. You can't. It's so much different than anything else, and it is my favorite ending to a game that I've played because it truly transcends its medium, and as was talked about in the first podcast, it's Yoko Taro asking games to shoot higher with their ambitions, and I think it is just a beautiful end.
Taro takes the ideas of multiple playthroughs and the idea of player investment into a character or a world, and twists them so powerfully that this is one of the most memorable video game endings I've ever encountered. And I'm afraid we went on the under for how many times I was going to cry during this playthrough. I think I only shed tears once, but.
How many jaws on the floor?
How many dropped jaws? We're going into the double digits because there are some gasps in this game, like just some really startling, powerful moments in the story, which we've talked about several of them. And I'm going to make you compared this to a Bernie Sanders rally. I'm going to make a comparison that maybe some others made, but I'm going to spoil parts of the endings to two video games. So. Listeners, if you do not want to know anything about the endings to Bravely Default or Bravely Second, you shut off the podcast for about 90 seconds. Now, without getting into all of it, Bravely Default is a game about multiple playthroughs where you're like trapped in a Groundhog Day cycle. Like why, and the characters trapped in the cycle are like, what's going on? Why are we doing these events over and over? And at the end of the game, it's sort of like you're fighting a big dramatic final boss, and the game goes into your friends list and people that you've street passed with, and the heroes from their playthroughs all sort of join you from multiple dimensions to attack the final boss together, which is a powerful social moment that reminded me of the different ships sort of all joining together to fight the credits. And then Bravely Second does something where you're fighting a sort of a force that goes beyond time and space, and they make you go to your save data menu and hover over the delete button before your characters fight back and say, no, don't delete us, and they sort of drag you back to the final battle, and you fight them that way. So like those two games, which I'm basically a fanboy of, I really like both of the Bravely games for multiple reasons, basically had these cool subversive ideas about RPGs and multiple playthroughs, and because both games make you do sort of a New Game Plus style repeat. But it's less obnoxious in Bravely Second. And they have these neat subversive ideas about save data and multiple playthroughs and your friends list that are played with in, I think, a very interesting, fun way. And I like both of those concepts a lot. But Yoko Taro takes those ideas so much further and with so much more impact that I don't think he's borrowing or stealing these ideas at all. I'm zero. I have no idea whether he was aware of those two games' endings or not. But when video games take the language of video games and subvert them in a way that could not be done in any other medium and just make me lose sleep at night, I love it every time. Because stories that can only be told in a video game is such a great trick or powerful effect or whatever combination of adjective and noun you want. It is awesome when it's done as well as Bravely Default or Bravely Second, and NieR Automata does it better than either of those two. And they convinced me to delete save data on my own accord, which is not... If you had told me that a year ago, that an RPG would have convinced me to delete itself for a story reason or an emotional reason, I would not have believed you. NieR Automata is an incredible journey from start to finish, and it gets better and better with each new thing you unlock, and then it ends in a spectacular manner that you have to play to really understand. and I hope you've played this game if you're listening to this podcast, because otherwise
you're very lost at this point.
Yeah, otherwise you're very confused and have seen a peek behind the curtain that you probably would have preferred not to. But I mean, holy shit, guys! Like, this happened to me some hours ago, and I'm going to be thinking about it for the rest of 2020 minimum.
Now, if it makes you feel any better, and this is very Taro as well, there is an NPC if you play, and you can get them I think starting in the B route at the Resistance camp, where you can go and literally buy trophies.
Oh, right, I did see that, but I didn't buy any because of some shred of pride.
Yeah, if completion is your concern, then you can still do that. But I love that Taro includes that, like the meaninglessness of trophies. It's incredible.
He cares so little about them that he just threw that in there, which is hilarious and very Yoko Taro.
Yeah, it's totally on brand for this game too, so it makes sense.
So, Caitlin, I apologize if I've been talking over you a little bit. What were your thoughts on the ending? And do you think there will ever be a time where you delete your data on NieR Automata?
No, there won't be. I'd only be deleting my data to get the trophy. If I did that, I
don't think there is a trophy.
There's no trophy associated with that.
No, it didn't. It didn't give me one. If it did, and I didn't get it by mistake, I'd be upset. But I don't think
there's
there is
a trophy that thanks you for playing the game, and I think have to do.
No, that's just the E route. I got that trophy before the decision to delete.
Okay, well, then that's the only reason why I would even think about doing that. And I don't collect trophies. I don't platinum games, so sorry.
You don't platinum games, but ironically, you play games made by Platinum Games. Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. I'm a heartless bitch. I am looking at this from a practical standpoint. I don't want to have to redo all this stuff if I want to come back to this game. If I want to start a new game, then I'll do that, but I don't want to lose my data just because, I don't know. I understand the emotional experience, but realistically, I know there's plenty of other people who have done this, so any other future player has plenty of people to help them get through that sequence. They don't need my data to do that. And I don't know. I feel like I see where you're all coming from, but the fact that he did this before in NieR makes me wonder if it's also just because it's a thing that he does in his games. You know, like if this was the only time this had happened, then okay. But
if there's literally,
I mean, I think it is a thing that he does, but I mean, in NieR he does it to different effect. I mean, it's about erasing. I don't want to spoil NieR on this. I guess I'll stop there. But in the original NieR, it is definitely done for a different reason. But yes, he's a troll. I mean, I think that's definitely part of it. I agree with you.
Yeah, in the original NieR. I'll just say that it is nowhere near as nowhere near. It's
we're full
not
of
even
wordplay this episode.
to being as impactful or anything. It definitely feels like hey, here's a thought, and then Automata is the actual, okay, this is this thought fully formed.
Also, to put things into context, this is a game that you could do most of everything in the 30 to 35 hour range. And when I was contemplating whether to delete the game data or not, it did occur to me, maybe I will want to play this game again eventually, but I'm okay with deleting the data in case I never play this game again, or 30 to 35 hours is not the greatest time demand I've ever seen in an RPG. But on the other hand, if Yoko Taro threatens to delete my Final Fantasy XIV character data in the portions of the game that he's writing, absolutely not. I would be livid. I'm sorry. I would pull the plug on my computer before that choice could be registered.
I'm not even to the Heavensward content yet, and I'd still be upset.
But I again, they're making sure to keep the keys of the server room out of Yoko Taro's hands. So I think that yes. I doubt we'll quite get there in the Yorha Dark Apocalypse raids in Final Fantasy XIV. But if I've talked far too much about FF14 on the past, say, 2 months of podcasts. Coincidentally, I've been back into the game for the past 7 weeks.
Anybody here play the DLC?
Yes, I had the game of the Yorha edition, so I was able to play that. It's Nothing. It's just arena battles and costumes.
Did you play? There's a sequence that opens up after you clear the 3 DLCs. Did you play that?
There's
like
the
where you're a robot
that
doesn't
special
want
boss
to fight.
fight. You mean?
It's after that as well. So you are basically like there's a
special boss fight that's really fucking hard. By the way.
Yeah, no. It's after that where after you clear that, and I guess we're spoiling the hell out of this game, so we can just say it. There's a special boss fight in the DLC where you get to fight against Yoko, Taro, and Saito, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
is that right?
Yeah.
It's incredibly difficult, but really fun. But after you beat that, you can go to the amusement park, and there is another story sequence you can open where you play as a robot who doesn't like fighting for half an hour. And it's basically this whole sequence that follows him as he continuously doesn't want to fight. And then he gets recycled. And there's like this CG cutscene that basically shows like all these dolls being recycled. And, it gets again to the same idea of pointless. It's actually really beautiful. If you guys haven't played it, you should. It's not that expensive it's titled really ridiculously like 3C.
Well, it's a little
blah,
late
blah,
for
blah.
that, Zach.
It's a weird
point.
date chain, basically.
You know what? That's a really good point for Joe and Mike. You guys can't play it. Never mind.
Actually, I wonder, here's a good question. If you uploaded your save data before that end choice to the cloud, could you then re-download it?
It's a good question. I don't know.
I don't know if the game, can tell or whatnot that you downloaded save data from the cloud, because you could maybe get around that if you wanted to have your cake and eat it too.
I think it remembers that you've deleted the data at least once, because the opening menu screen changed for me.
Yeah, it's really cool too. Mm-hmm. It's in Emil's area, which we didn't even talk about Emil, but we're out of time. So.
You mean with the flowers?
No, it's different. It's all black with a single sword.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's like in Emil's area around all the flowers. If you do that side quest, you can see like a bunch of lunar tier flowers around it. This is not.
Yeah, you get that even if you don't you delete your data.
No, I got the flower.
Okay.
I got the flowers one, but then it changed after I deleted my data.
Oh,
maybe,
okay.
I could be wrong too. But we've gone almost 2 hours, and it is time to end the podcast. Again, there's so much to talk about in this game that we could have an episode 3, but alas, we shall not. Next month, we're going to have an episode on Dragon Quest: Your Story, the animated film adaptation of Dragon Quest V that goes some unusual places.
It does.
Yeah, without getting into too many details, but we'll get into plenty of detail when we record that episode. And also an episode on RPG adaptations. I did an episode on that with a handful of people 2 years ago, and we're gonna bring back that idea where which stories from outside RPGs do we think could be adapted into great RPGs. I guarantee that Peter will talk about Lord of the Rings for a solid 10 minutes on that episode. But beyond that, I'm not sure how it's gonna go. And also 2 episodes on Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE, the unusual blend of Fire Emblem and Shin Megami Tensei, made by Atlas for the Wii U 5 years ago and the Switch earlier this year. So I'm in Chapter 2 of that game out of I think 6 or 7. So it is, oh boy, it's a rainbow of RPG stuff. I will have a lot of things to talk about for those 2 episodes, which are coming in late March. But listeners, if you want to reach out to us on the podcast, the best way to do so is email retro@rpgfan.com. rpgfan.com also has message boards, a Facebook page, an Instagram page, a Twitter account, a Discord server, and a Twitch channel with something new streaming every day. Please experience RPG Fan however you want. And speaking of other experiences, there's 3 other podcasts in RPG Fan: Random Encounter about randomness, Rhythm Encounter about RPG Fan music, and Phoenix Edge, which is a weekly streamed on YouTube podcast that mostly focuses on current events. And so please review Retro Encounter and those 3 other podcasts on iTunes or however you prefer to experience your podcasts. We will take all the feedback that you're willing to provide. Before we delete ourselves from this podcast, let's tell listeners how to find us, starting with you, Caitlin.
I am Leanne Gazarel on Twitter and Discord.
And Joe.
I am at Course Your Fears on Twitter, Discord, and Instagram.
And Zach.
You can reach me by emailing me at zachw@rpgfan.com or at zachw on Discord.
And listeners, you can find me at The Real Monsoon on Twitter, at Evoker for Dogs also on Twitter, Monsoon Mike on Discord, and Monsoon on RPG Fans forums that I've not visited in months. Yeah, I don't know. I think I need to go and watch something cheerful or get a warm hug or something after the places we went on this podcast. Listeners, thank you. Good night, and good luck.
I feel like I'm losing hope in my body and my soul, and the sky, it looks so ominous. And as time comes to a halt, silence starts to overflow. My cries are inconspicuous. Tell me, God, are you punishing me? Is this the price I'm paying for my past mistakes? This is my redemption song. I need you more.